I'm dancing to the music. Hey, happy holidays, people out there and people watching the replay. Thank you for watching the replay, but especially you guys who are out there live. Thank you for giving up your day and your night. And I hope you're warm wherever you are and that there's no blizzards or tornadoes or, any other chaos. No chaos, just peace and calm and good cheer. Hi, I am MM DeVoe and this is Christina Chu, and we are the Parentis Literary Salon, and this is the holiday edition. So we have a really, really great show for you. But first, let me thank our amazing sponsors. So, of course, the DeGroat Foundation. We love you, DeGroat Foundation. Thank you. Yay! And, of course, the New York Council of the Arts. Thank you very much. Clydette's out there. You see her? She's out there in the front row. Hi, Clydette! Hi! Hey, Lisa! So that's really cool. And Clydette, you need to look next to you in the front row because Charles McNair is sitting in the front row right there next to you. So you guys should talk to each other during the break. Anyway, our December sponsor is oplm.com, and they are Other Parents Like Me. Other Parents Like Me is a collective of, it's a parent-to-parent support community for parents, obviously, who have kids that are teenage kids who are suffering with mental health issues. So if that is you, you might want to check out Other Parents Like Me, oplm.com, and they will hopefully help you. They have really cool resources. They have professionals that they vet, and they offer a lot of referrals, but mostly they do like these small groups where you find support from your peers. It is a very, very loving and warm organization. So OPLM, thanks very much for sponsoring us. And if you are here early, you will please, write your name and say hi and say where you're from. Let us know if you have kids. Let us know if you're a writer. We'd love to know these things. Just type it. If you're logged into Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube at this very moment, you can do that and we will see your comments. And during the entire show, feel free to put hearts and put like emojis and say things and mention things and ask questions. And we will, get you talking with these amazing authors, which Christina is going to introduce right now.
So we have 3 incredible authors tonight, and I think they're going to be great together, and you're going to love the discussion because they're amazing. I'm going to introduce Lan Samantha Chang first. Her book is The Family Chow, and it recently came out. It was a Barnes & Noble's National Book Club selection pick, and Vogue included it in its best books of 2022. And of course, Oprah Daily included in the 50 most anticipated books of 2022. Lan has a 15-year-old daughter, a sophomore in high school. Everyone say hi to Lan. Hi!
Hi, Sam. Hi, Sam. Do you go by Sam or Lan? You go by Sam, don't you?
Sam is basically fine.
Okay, we'll call you Sam. Hi, Sam.
Yeah.
I also want to introduce Jacquelyn Mitchard. She is the New York Times bestselling author of 22 novels. She's the recipient of the Great Britain's Talk About Prize, the Bram Stoker, and Shirley Jackson's awards.
Like all the awards.
She's got all the awards, yeah. So her book, if you remember, was chosen as one of The Deep End of the Ocean was chosen as the inaugural selection of the Oprah Winfrey Book Club. Mm-hmm. Pretty amazing, right? And she has 9 children. So
just 9 kids. And
bowing down to you.
Books. We are so excited for this panel. I'm like,
this is really amazing. I'm really excited. So our final reader, actually our first reader tonight, is Cleyvis Natera. She's an essayist, a short fiction writer, a critic, and novelist. Her debut novel, Neruda on the Park, was an anticipated book of 2022 by Time, the Today Show, Elle, Ms. Magazine, and others. Neruda on the Park was selected as the May 2022 New York Times Editor's Choice Award, and the June 2022 pick for Nobel laureate Malala Yousafzai. Is that how, am I saying it correctly? Literary book club. Natera was born in the Dominican Republic and raised in New York City. She received honors from PEN America, Breadloaf Writers Conference, Hermitage Artist Retreat, Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, and Voices of Our Nation Arts Foundation. That's FONA. Her fiction, essays, and criticism have appeared in the New York Times Book Review, Ursa Fiction, Alien Nation, the Brooklyn Rail, Time, The Rumpus, and many others. Everyone, please welcome Cleyvis Natera.
Yay! Yay! We're going to do some short readings, and then we're going to do some chatties, and Cleyvis is going to read first.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Parentis, for having me. It is such a pleasure and an honor. I am the mother of 2 young children, and I am excited to be here with all of you parent writers.
How little are your babies?
I have an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old.
Nice.
So,
oh, they're lovely.
yeah. And I don't usually live in a wood cabin. I am in a writing retreat right now, which feels like an incredible gift to get to spend time with all of you and then to get to write for the rest of this week in Florida. And it was 80 degrees today, so I'm having the best day.
Oh, wow.
All right, I'm going to read to you. So my debut, Neruda on the Park, it's my debut. It just came out in May, and it's been a really joyful time. So I'm going to read to you just a little bit from chapter 4. And all you need to know really is that this book is about a mother and daughter, and it's about a family and a neighborhood in crisis, and it's about what happens to this community and to this family when gentrification arrives in this immigrant community in New York City. So I'm going to read a little bit to you from the mother's chapter, chapter 4. And she's standing on the roof of a building looking at a building that has been demolished to make room for a luxury condo. How could they have done all of that in 3 days? How could they possibly have gotten that done so fast? One of Eusebia's best friends asked. They discarded that old building to make room for what? The tongues asked her. Eusebia never imagined there would be this much space. I have an idea on how to stop all of this from happening, she said. Her friends looked at her curiously. What if we just scare everyone into thinking this neighborhood is really bad, she said. The women smiled, thinking it a joke, brilliant in its simplicity. How would we do that, they asked. Eusebia could clearly see the envoy's thought that it would be too easy to work. Eusebia spoke in a confident way, as if this conversation had already happened. She explained she meant recruiting their neighbors who would act out crimes throughout the neighborhood with other volunteers who would be the victims of the crimes. You mean fake crimes, they asked. No, not fake, real. Who'd be crazy enough to move to a neighborhood amid a crime spree? What kind of crimes? They asked. Eusebia was quiet. She had come up with a list, but she knew if they participated, helped formulate it, they'd be in. What would scare you? She asked. What would be bad enough? This is the kind of idea that can destroy a community, her friend said. That can save it, she corrected. The women stared at her, worried. They understood she was serious. She had moved too fast. Eusebia extended her arm around the neighborhood, lovingly sweeping all they could see over by their side of the park, Raul's shipping place, the cleaners owned by the Chinitos who were born in DR, the liquor store, the dentist. She wrapped her arm around herself, signaling what they couldn't see. The smell of water boiling for root vegetables, of meat sizzling in pans, laundry being folded, children being kissed, phone calls back home to people who needed help, who would be lost without the support of those who had traveled here. We can just come up with a list of things people are scared of, she said. The women exchanged looks. They spoke to each other with the simple speed of a blink. But now Eusebia was in on it, an eavesdropper. Questions floated among all 4 of the women. Could it work? Was it worth trying? What else as an alternative? It was true. Fear would work. Fear always worked. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Wow.
Yay! Oh my goodness.
You know what I love is that I feel like you drew very much from real life. Can you talk about how real life ends up in your fiction?
Oh, I mean, so much of it. You know, when I was one of those kids, I grew up in Harlem, and most of my family lived in Washington Heights. So when I left to go to college, I went to Skidmore College, which is upstate New York in Saratoga Springs. And to be honest with you, I was pretty much gone for the 4 years. I stayed in college every summer. So I was only really coming home like for a week for the holidays or right before my summer job started back up in college. And it was just really shocking to me when I came back home and I was, you know, just about to turn 22. And like the violence of what it means for gentrification to race through your neighborhood was shocking to me. And then, you know, because I wrote this book over the course of 15 years, to go from like my late 20s to now, and I'm in my 40s, and it's like, what has happened to the neighborhoods? I mean, to think about erasure in this kind of visceral way was really inspiring to me in some ways. I think it really connected a lot of what I was interested in thinking about, which was my immigrant experience, right? And like, what are the forces that really pushed my family to come to the United States? So much of like what I was living every day, I think informed the story.
Wonderful. We're going to actually talk more about this later on in the discussion, because I want to ask Sam and Jackie also about this question. But let's have our second reader next. Lan Samantha Chang is a novelist. Her new novel, The Family Chow, was a Barnes & Noble's National Book Club selection and received starred reviews on Kirkus Publishers Weekly and Book Page. Vogue included The Family Chow in the best books of 2022. Oprah Daily included in the 50 most anticipated books of 2022. It was one of LitHub's most anticipated books of 2022 and the Million's most anticipated. That it was very anticipated. Two previous novels, All Is Forgotten, Nothing Is Lost, and Inheritance. And her story collection is Hunger. Her short
I have something that somebody wanted in the audience said about Hunger. Wait, look at this. Mai said, Hunger by Lan Samantha Chang made me want to be a writer for real.
I actually was going to say that. Oh, God, someone stole it. Someone stole it from me.
Anyway, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool that you can inspire people to like start a life of writing. That's pretty good. Go on with the bio. Sorry.
So she's been published in Atlantic Monthly, Plowshares, The Best American Short Stories. She's received fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts, John Simon Guggenheim Foundation, and the American Academy in Brooklyn. Chang is the director of the University of Iowa Writers Workshop. She lives with her husband and daughter in Iowa City, Iowa. This is her first time here, and we're so lucky.
Yes.
Everyone, please welcome Sam Chang.
It's so great to be here. Thanks, Christina. It's an honor to be here. Okay, so I'll just start by reading the very beginning of my book, The Family Chow, now out in paperback. For 35 years, everyone supported Leo Chow's restaurant, introducing choosy newcomers by showing off some real Chinese food in Haven, Wisconsin. Bringing children, parents, grandparents, not wanting to dine out with the Americans, not wanting to think about which fork to use. You could say the manifold tensions of life in the new country, the focus on the future, tracking incremental gains and losses, were relieved by the fine chow. Sitting down under the dusty red lanterns, gazing at Leo's latest calendar with the limp-haired Taiwanese sylphs that Winnie hated so much, waiting for supper, everyone felt calm. In dark times, when you're feeling homesick or defeated, there's really nothing like a good steaming soup and dumplings made from scratch. Winnie and Big Leo Chow were serving scallion pancakes decades before you could find them outside of a home kitchen. Leo, 35 years ago, winning his first poker game against the owners of a local poultry farm, exchanged his chips for birds that Winnie transformed into the shining chestnut-colored duck dishes of far-off cities. Dear Winnie, rolling out her Bing the homemade way, 2 pats of dough together with a seal of oil in between, letting them rise to a steaming bubble in the piping pan. Leo bargaining for hard-to-get ingredients, Winnie subbing wax beans for yard-long beans, plus home-growing the garlic greens and hot peppers you used to never find in Haven, their garden giving off a glorious smell. You could say the community ate its way through the Chow family's distress, not caring whether Winnie was happy, whether Big Chow was an honest man. Everyone took in food on one side of their mouths, and from the other, they extolled the parents for their sons' accomplishments, heaping praise upon the 3 boys who grew up all bright and ambitious, who earned scholarships to good colleges, commending them for leaving the Midwest. Yet, everyone was thankful when the oldest, Dago Chow, returned to Haven. Dago coming home to his mother, moving into the apartment over the restaurant, working there 6 days a week. Dago, the most passionate cook in the family. Despite the trouble between Winnie and Big Chow, everyone assumed the business would be handed down fairly, peacefully, father to son. Now, a year after the shame, the intemperate and scandalous events that began on a winter evening in Union Station, the community defends its 35-year indifference to the Chow family's troubles by saying, no one could have believed that such good food was cooked by a bad person.
Yay! Yay!
Sam, I love the book. I love the book. I was wondering, you said it in a restaurant. You don't do this with all your stories, but with this story, you said it like in a restaurant. Is there a reason why you chose that as a metaphor?
Yeah, a lot of things came together. I wanted to write a story in which there was a huge party that lasted for an entire evening, like a dinner party. That was one thing. That was like the first idea. And then also I needed something for the father and son to get into a conflict about. And I realized that it would work best if it was some kind of succession drama, in a way. And so it seemed to me that given my own obsession with writing about food, wanting to write something with food and eating in it, that the restaurant would be the clearest way to do it. Also, I'm just a huge eater, and I'm the kind of person who eats in the same place over and over and over again. And so I'm just fascinated by restaurants.
I think that's so true about dumplings. If ever you're having a bad day, get yourself some dumplings, you'll feel better.
Everybody, that's so true. I'm wondering about Haven, Wisconsin. Did you invent the town? Is it a real place?
Oh my God. Okay. All right.
Sorry.
I know. I wanted to invent the town. I gave it a name. I looked it up on Wikipedia. I'm from Wisconsin, and I thought, okay, like I've never heard of Haven, Wisconsin. I look it up on Wikipedia. Wikipedia said there was no town. It's called Haven, Wisconsin, but it turns out there is.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Scott Simon told me this on NPR right before our interview.
Oh, no way.
Their researchers discovered that there's an unincorporated town called Haven, Wisconsin. And so now at the end of the year, post anticipation, it's coming out on lists like Wisconsin Books of the Year. And one of them is like set in Haven near, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not.
That is hilarious. That's so strange that it just didn't show up on any web searches.
No.
Wow, that's great. Are you gonna go? Are you gonna do a reading there? Do you think?
I actually drove. I drove close enough so that I saw a sign that said Haven, and I just didn't. I just couldn't.
Please no.
The town comes off as a little bit less than perfect.
That's hard. Well, I mean, and that's probably why you wanted a fictional.
Right, exactly.
Place,
I was not
you don't
trying
want
to
to be drag a real place through the you know.
Yeah.
Like, I wrote that book. I wrote about your town.
That's great.
He said
That's
that things.
super fun. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Thank you so much, Sam. We're going to move on to Jacquelyn Mitchard. She is the New York Times best-selling author of 22 novels for adults and teenagers. She's the recipient of the Great Britain's Talk About Prize, the Bram Stoker Shirley Jackson Awards, and named to the short list for the Women's Prize for Fiction. Her first novel, The Deep End of the Ocean, was the inaugural selection of the Oprah Winfrey Book Club. Let's see. It sold 3 million copies. What? That's a lot. That's a lot. I think we can all agree that's a lot. And it's in print in 34 languages. Her essays have also been published in various magazines worldwide. She's been anthologized, and she's got 9 children. So we had her not too long ago, and
we didn't even get around to talking about the kids.
We didn't get.
That's why we had to get her back, because we were like, we didn't even talk about the kids. It's amazing.
So everyone, please welcome Jacquelyn Mitchard.
Yay!
Hello.
Hi. I told you when I met you, Christina, that my secret is that I have really low standards for my children. And so a lot is made of that for no good reason. I'm going to read from a book that is not going to be published until 2023. It's called What the Waves Tell Us About Love. And I think that's the 38th title that I've had for it. And I think it's the final one. I mean, we've called it everything, including Pride of the Yankees, The Deep End of the Ocean Diet, everything.
Do you get final say now? Like after 22 novels, are you able to say, no, this is the title I want? Or are you still being pushed?
No. No, I am not able to say. I'm able to say anything I want, but they will mute me and say the sales force really responded to, and then, you get mean. And my last book was called The Good Son. And I kept saying, why don't you call this the good daughter? And then the next one we can call The Good Mother and The Good Dog. And so anyway, but it is about all you have to know for this tiny section. It's sort of in the middle of the book. And it's the protagonist character, whose name is Frankie Attleboro. She's an underwater photographer like David Dublier and a lot of other people. Well, not a lot of other people, but some other people. And she's talking, someone's doing a profile of her for a magazine. And it is her high school nemesis, who is the journalist, but now is being nice. And her name is Ella Bella, which is a name I made up and I really like, the journalist's name. Okay, so here we go. Ella Bella, oh, by the way, the point of the story, which I forgot to tell you, is that Frankie has come home to Cape Cod to learn that her 60-year-old father has married her best friend. And they're expecting a baby. She's 27.
That's a shocker.
Yeah, and I just left that out, Okay. So, Alabella interrupted Frankie's thoughts, asking, what did she love best about the job she did? Was it just taking the pictures? Was it the travel, the places she got to see, off the beaten path? No, said Frankie, it was always the stories. It was telling stories to people, but mostly telling them to my mother. She was the first audience and the best audience. I mean, like any mother, she thought everything I did was amazing because I was the one who did it. Frankie told Bella about when she was a child, maybe in the first grade, she would bring home some kind of craft project, like a picture frame made out of popsicle sticks, stuck all over with plastic jewels and little tongues of purple felt. A picture frame exactly like the picture frame of every other child in the class. And Beatrice would act amazed, not just saying, "Oh, how pretty," but commenting on Frankie's creative choices, like gluing 2 strips of rickrack in each corner instead of just 1. When she grew up, Frankie went on with her pictures, and her stories were like those popsicle projects, carried to her mother like wine in a chalice. Not every mother is like that, said Bella. So tell me one of those stories. Okay, one of the great things about my mother is she was so self-possessed and so generous, like you wouldn't normally call someone at 2:00 in the morning, but I knew that I could do that. Beatrice answered the phone at 2:00 in the morning the same way she did at 2 in the afternoon. She was composed. She was eager. You know, on TV, there's this character, the sexy detective, who's supposed to throw himself into everything so deeply that when he comes home, he just falls on the bed face down wearing all his clothes. And then somebody calls and he fumbles and he knocks the phone over and he just says, Yeah, said Bella. He was not like that, said Frankie. She'd wake you up and boom, she was right there with you. It was like you'd left the room 5 minutes before. So one night, this was in the spring, I was in Washington State, out in the straits of the Salish Sea. My friend Lupe, she's another photographer, was driving the boat. We got to this place, a good dark place, where I knew I could sink down to take pictures of juvenile sturgeon fish because they glow this beautiful green. Why? Is it because of predators? Nobody knows why. It's only when they're really young, Frankie said. So I'm out there and I have to go down deep. Like they're down 60, 80 feet, but I do. But before I do, I notice that I can't see anything. You were blind? No, I could see the sky overhead, but I could not see Lupe or the big boat that we were using. What? Did you ever have something happen that was so strange you didn't even know how to ask the question? And my mind starts spinning. Was I in some kind of crazy current? I couldn't feel anything special. Frankie swam forward, looking up at the sky, but on either side of her were these sort of walls. They were dark, with light patches, wet and glossy. And then I realized that the walls were moving. Whoa, what? They were orcas, killer whales, 3, 4, 6 of them, more of them in a pod, close enough that I could have reached out and touched them. But they won't hurt you, right? Bella said. Well, sure they can hurt you if they want to. They're apex predators. And the ones in captivity, the way they're kept isolated and other stuff that makes them psychotic, and they definitely have hurt human beings, even the trainers and keepers who are with them every day. So what did you do? Well, I started to cry. I was terrified. And then what? Then I started to take pictures. Really? The best I could do was to hope they were just curious, the way all whales and porpoises are curious. I don't think I could have done that in the dark, in the middle of the night. Like I said, I was scared out of my mind. Lupe was yelling. She was banging on the side of the boat with a big barge pole, sounding the air horn, trying to get them to scatter, but they didn't care. And why should they? They were the lords of that realm. That was their dominion. They weren't going to leave until they were ready to leave. They let me close. I could hear the sound of their breathing. They didn't harm me. They had their reasons. Those turned out to be some of the most spectacular pictures Frankie had ever made. The pliant, powerful bodies, the giant toothed mouths, the intelligent black eyes. When she got home, she couldn't wait to tell her mother. Beatrice was thrilled by the story, and I'm sure she was frightened by it too. But she didn't say that. She just kept asking for more details. It was the same way that she had reacted to those picture frames made of popsicle sticks so many years ago, enthralled, engaged, and loyal. Without thinking, Frankie added, I would give up all those moments, even though I love them, if I could just see her once more.
Mm.
Oh, oh,
Heartbroken.
Oh.
That was beautiful.
that was beautiful. That was really beautiful. Jackie, you're such a amazing storyteller. I literally, you could make a story out of anything, but
Yeah, but that's a pretty big thing.
Well, it's a whale.
I mean,
that's
being surrounded by
beautiful.
killer whales in the middle of the night is an unusual thing. So
That is very unusual. But I
Awesome.
need to know about the whales now.
Yeah.
I need to know. I need to know.
nothing happened. Nothing
Okay,
happened. She just
okay.
got to take pictures of them. They didn't kill her because obviously she's the narrator of this story.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. The whales.
Oh,
So after 22 books, how do you dig up a new story? How do you, I'm sure that they come after you. The second your book is out, your publisher's like, so
Where's
you
the
got
next
the
one?
next one?
We've lost your.
I can't hear you.
Wait.
Wait,
Let
I
me
want to hear this.
hang on. We want to unmute you. Hold on. Wait, we got you. Wait. Hold it.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
Yes, we
yeah.
can
There
hear
you
you.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't come after me. They make me think that I'm washed up every time. And they make me think that, well, it could have done a little better. And you know what, this is how it is with all novels and novelists. Not you guys, okay? God forbid this should ever happen to you. But after a while, it's sort of like, so what have you done for me lately? And in any case, however, the worst thing for me is that I sweat blood over ideas. I can write anything that I can think of, but I can't think of anything to write.
That can't be true.
No,
You've
that
written
is God's truth.
books. I'm so jealous.
Oh, please.
No,
Me too.
seriously.
How do you find the mental space to do that
Yeah.
ideating, to do the ideating, to like come up with the, like, where do you go away, or do you like tell all the kids to stay in one room?
Well,
And you go,
kids are big now. I mean, they're the youngest ones are in high school, which is not, trivial, but high school and college. And so they don't need me for every little thing.
for peanut butter sandwiches every 5 minutes.
I need them more than they need me.
Mhm.
And but how do I come up with ideas? They come from like my great friend Jean Kwok, okay, yeah, said to me when she told me about the family chow, she said, I lived in that restaurant. Every kid who grew up in a Chinese restaurant knows knows intimately just the color of the walls, the smells, everything about it. And she said, and I'm so jealous, I'm so envious of the way that she realized that. And for me, of course, all stories are about love and tragedy. All stories are about people who want better and maybe experience it for a while, and then they pay the toll. And it doesn't really matter where they take place. They're all about the same thing, right?
I love that. Can we get some comment from Sam or Cleyvis about that?
I just find that completely fascinating. I'm so interested in that. And especially the part about paying the toll.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I especially love this idea of just giving into your obsessions. Like, I think as writers, we talk about that a lot. And one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is just how once I realized what is the story I'm interested in telling, and like for me, like Jacquelyn, I am interested in telling a story about like what happens to women when grief turns them into monsters. And I'm going to be telling that story for a while, like I'm really fascinated by this idea of like loss and how that can really morph us into monsters. And so I love that you're just like, this is the story I want to tell, and I'm gonna find different ways to do it. And I mean, I think that's beautiful, because that's what we should be doing, is giving into the things that interest you and obsess us.
And Cleyvis, didn't you in an interview say that everything comes from love for you?
For me, yeah. I mean, I think so much of what I'm interested in doing, especially in Neruda on the Park, it's really thinking about how love is like blinds us. Like, I think a lot of times about how so often, especially as women, and I think, the dynamic I wanted to explore in my book is this idea of this immigrant experience of like being a mother and like everyone feeling entitled to like your entire existence, and how like everyone just feels like you owe them their happiness, right? Like you owe them taking care of them. And that entitlement to me is really interested, but I'm not interested in thinking about relationships where people don't love each other. Like, I know that, like, I just think there's a bigger rub when we love each other, but like that love acts as a blinder because we feel like we already know what's better for the people we love. And I think that's a fascinating place to dig in.
That is. We have also a very good question from the audience. Here it is. Victory Joe said, as a mom of 5, 15, 7, 3, and twins that are 1, I am often exhausted by the end of the day. Only often? I am often exhausted by the end of the day and struggle with the mental capacity to write. Also not a morning person. So how do you all keep up your creativity and writing? And I presume that you should all answer this because you've all had to write when you have little kids around. So how did you do it? What did you do to recharge or to find that mental space?
Jacquelyn?
I'm saying nothing. I mean, I never did anything illegal. Ever. And, but there have been plenty of times in my life, and I think everyone who is a mother, sister, wife, whatever it happens to be, your writing is probably the 5th or 6th most important thing in your life, and yet it's the only thing in your life. And so in order to, you have to, and I know this is true for women more than men. I know this is true, that you're like a priest who has to sneak into the corner of the chapel and say mass, because everything else is commanding your attention, and rightly so. I mean, they didn't ask to be born, they didn't. So in some ways, I feel as though if I could do a workmanly job, if you will, with my writing, given that it had to come after so many other things, then I guess it was pretty urgent to me.
Did you have
I have no hobbies. I have no hobbies. I'm pretty much a bad dresser. I have nothing but my family and my writing. That's it.
No PTA volunteering or
girl, my dear, what even the PTA? I sent some checks to school to the high school fundraiser, and I'm still talking about it. This was 2 months ago. I'm still saying, you see me with the checks mix? No. I mean, I have a very narrow life, but I think that is as an acolyte to writing and to my family.
I suspect that your family is supportive of your career. I mean, in a sense that they're not like, cut it out, come and play with me. They're like, okay, Mom.
No. They're like, go in your room and do what you do best. Go in your room. But supportive. I mean, none of my children. Well, no, that's not true. One of my children has read a book I wrote. I've written 23 books. I have 9 children. one of them has read a book that I wrote. And one of them started to read a book and she realized that it sounded like my voice. And she looked at the cover and said, oh my God.
Oh no.
And put that down because she realized I had written it.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, that's funny.
And all my friends, they say, oh, and my daughter was so intimately involved in helping me figure out what it would be like to be in the drama club and everything. And that's a dream that I have not realized.
Interesting. Interesting. How about
What
the
about
other two of you? Do you guys, like how do
Sam?
how do you balance your family time and your writing time? Well,
my daughter
Cleyvis went to Florida, is how she did it.
That's exactly what I did. In order to write The Family Child, I went away to places like Hedgebrook, Christina, where I saw you, and then I would come back because I have a job with maybe 100 graduate students. They're kind of like, they want my attention a lot.
All of it.
Yeah. So but my daughter feels, I think, like she has sort of siblings.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. I think going to residencies was the only way I could prime the pump and keep things going. And yeah, I'm so grateful for those, especially when they cook for you.
Oh, the residencies. Yeah.
I mean, one thing that I would say to Victory though is, I don't know. I mean, for me, when I left writing for a while. I had a full-time job, I had children, and I just felt really defeated. I felt embarrassed. Like a lot of my friends were publishing books and it just wasn't happening for me. So I just felt devastated. And I went into a cave and I thought I would be able to like write in isolation and, then come out like a phoenix, and like conquer, be triumphant. And what I found is that like I am not the kind of writer that can thrive on my own in isolation. Like I'm the kind of writer that needs community. And so what I would say is that like the two things that helped me get this book done when I decided that like writing was a priority, because I mean, for anybody that's out there, it's okay if writing is not a priority. Like all of us are parents. I think we're all sharing this space because, we're parents, and there are going to be times in our lives when like parenting has to take the front seat and writing is going to be in the back seat. But I also think that like what we have to realize is that it's never going to be easy. Like to me, like I think that was something that was a critical pivotal point where I was like, oh shit, like I thought when they started walking it'd be easier, or when they could wipe their own butts it would be easier, but like it never got easier. And like again, my kids are 8 and 10, so I'm still in the grind, but I just at one point was like, enough. Like I need a community and I need to like make this a priority. And for me, that was the pivotal point where I was like, is it gonna suck? Am I a morning person, Victory? No, I'm not. But guess like I got up at 5 a.m. to write because I was like, it's not gonna happen otherwise, So I think if you have the ability to go to a writing retreat, do that. I mean, I can get done in 1 week. I'm here for 6 days. And I can tell you right now, the last time I went away for 6 days, I wrote 100 pages of fiction.
You bet.
Like I just, because like I'm thinking about it for 5 months and I can't write. So it's like, I think just making it a priority and then saying, let me get through the draft. Because for me, that's the mountain, is getting through the first draft. Editing, I can do a little here, a little there. But it's just not going to get easier, Victor. You're not going to get rested. You're not going to feel refreshed. Like you just have to fit it in,
Right. One of the things that we do.
Be kind and patient with herself too.
Of course.
Be kind and patient to herself. She sounds as though she's kind of hitting herself on the head about this. And, don't do that, because it just makes it worse. It just makes the despair and the oh, I'm not producing anything. All my friends are on the New York Times bestseller list and I'm not. It just makes it worse if you beat up on yourself. Right. If you're kind and gentle to yourself and say, that's a good victory. I mean, you're doing your best. It almost seems to be the hard parts are maybe easier, the getting up at 4 a.m. to
One of
right.
the things that Parentis has for title members, like we have a title membership program where you can sustain us by donating a small amount every month, and in exchange, see, look at the thing, and in exchange, we allow you to join a accountability group, and it's a weekly Zoom, much like this one, where you have a team leader who's trained, and you set goals that are manageable in your own life. So your goals, obviously, with 5 children, are not going to be the same goals as somebody who has, one super easy straight A kid, who doesn't want any involvement from mom. So it's going to be very different for you, but you can still set a goal that has to do with your writing. And even if it's a small goal, anything you do will move you ahead. And having a supportive community of other writers that are in the same boat, in that they have kids, they get it, they're probably just all going to be in awe of you because you have 5 kids. That's just going to be like, oh my God, you've already succeeded. Like, that's crazy. And you're still alive. You're still great. So, so that might be something you might be interested in doing.
And also, Victory, just so you know, once you join a meetup and get going with the writing, we do have a fellowship. So you could take a look at that too. For sure.
Because we're like commercials today. Oh, and also, while we're doing commercials, do you guys mind if I just plug this wonderful grant that the DeGroat Foundation is offering? It's called the Courage to Write Grant. There are 7 of them. They are $7,000 a piece. They are for any writer who is an emerging writer. I believe it's only for emerging. No, I think it could be emerging or established. I don't know. Clydette, tell us if it's both or just one. But I'm pretty sure that like any writer over 18 is eligible.
How long can you emerge for?
That's the question, right? I know that the foundation donates to emerging writers, but I think that this grant is open to anybody. So so they are major supporters of ours. But this grant, it has a $22 application fee, I believe. And this year, they've added a second grant called the Lando Grant. And it is sponsored by a guy who was a producer on 60 Minutes. And a lifetime of emergence, says Clydette. Thanks, Clydette. And so,
nice.
So the Lando Grant is another 3 grants of $7,000 each. And these are specifically for writers who are writing about the immigrant experience or refugee experience. So please tell people about these grants so that they can find, it's like 10 grants of $7,000 each. Plus they give like $1,500 grants sort of if they really like you. So like it is a mind-blowing thing to me that they do this every year. It's open right now. The application is super basic. It is, tell me why you're writing, do a paragraph about your bio, and give us 5 pages of your writing. Like, it is not going to kill you to apply for this grant. And really, it's such a very, very cool thing. So highly recommend it. Okay, my commercial's over. Let's get back to talking. Wait, Sam hasn't said anything.
Sam.
I want Sam to talk about how she balances. How do you balance
your
family? How do you negotiate with your partner? Like, do you have a spouse? Like, how do you deal with?
I actually didn't get anything done for about 4 years. I'm embarrassed to confess this because I only have 1 kid and she's pretty well behaved, but I just was overwhelmed for a while in there. And it was
also the society thing where you're like looking at Instagram going, oh, I have to grow my own radishes and then crush them and then turn them into something edible. Yeah. And I have to do it in pictures.
So I stay off of social media.
Very wise.
Because I think it would make me feel unproductive. Everybody's coming out with the book every year, it feels like, and they're, everybody has a different way of dealing with these things. And so I just had to forgive myself and sort of get back on the horse. My friend said, get back on the hare, the horse that bit you. And just start going again. And, actually, I think it was, things were happening while I was writing this book. My mom died in 2014, and that was a really big thing. And I think it was after she died, I had a moment of clarity. And, my mom, always was supportive of my writing, even though she disapproved of me doing impractical things. But I just thought she wouldn't want me to not get anything done for the rest of my life because I got overwhelmed in the middle. She would encourage me and also the fact of her, passing made me realize that life is short, and I just had to give myself more of a break. I guess I started cutting things out that weren't really essential because I started to see what my priorities were. And so the idea of a stripped down life does appeal to me.
Nice.
If that makes any sense.
It really does.
So do you guys tend to create out at a residency and then edit back in your home? Or do you do all of it in residency that you can?
Cleyvis.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like a little bit of like a crazy person, because just like Samantha, I also didn't write for a long time. So, like I hadn't even published a short story 5 years ago when I decided to come back into writing. I got my MFA 15 years ago, and so my debut just got published this year. So like for some of us, it's just gonna be a little slower, you know what I mean? And like, so yeah, so then I just decided that I just was gonna be a writer, even if I wasn't like a writer with a published book. So I started like writing book reviews for like journals, and I started doing like little essays, like nonfiction for blogs, and then like everything started to snowball from there for me. I also started like whenever I was taking a break from my novel, I would write little short stories, and I would keep them to like 2,000 words. And I would do like fun writing exercises for myself. Like, can I write a short story that's totally like a setting driven, right? Or like, can I write a short story that's all about propulsion? Or like, can I write a short story that's all about like people becoming monsters, because that's what I'm interested in, And so it's like character transformation, but like in a way where, if I was using that story to teach someone how to do it, it would be really clear how you did it. And so I just like really entertained myself, and I just kept getting rejected by everyone, everywhere I sent my work. And then eventually I didn't get rejected. Like eventually things, started getting picked up, and now, I stopped being embarrassed. I started hitting up my friends that were on their second or third books and being like, please help me. And they started helping me. So, there's a part of me that feels like none of it is wasted. Like, that's the thing that I feel like when I was like in kind of like, a little bit of a sad place and I felt very isolated. It was because nothing was happening. But there was a time for me where I was like, I want to write because I love writing. And so just doing it more and doing different kinds of writing filled my heart with a lot of joy. And I did more of that. And so I would just say to people, like, sometimes we feel like, oh, if we're not getting the book deal, we're not real writers. But like for me, like it's still, even after I came back into writing, it took me 5 years to get a book out. You know what I mean? So it's like, follow your heart and your bliss. And I know that sounds so cheesy, but there's something to that, to doing.
Can
like
we actually talk about that real quick, about the process of selling that first novel? And Jacquelyn, you too, like all of you, tell us about, like, okay, you finished your first novel. How easy was it to sell the first one? Was it like this, like once it was done, that you thought it was done? Did you have like to take it out, send it out, and then rewrite it a few times, or how did it go? Because I know that's what's going on with a lot of people. Sam, you start.
Well, I mean, I made this terrible mistake with my first book of signing a contract for a 2-book deal. I had written a lot of stories, and Hunger, the collection, went out to publishers, and people offered me 2-book deals, and I took one. And my recommendation to myself afterwards was, don't do that again. I told myself I'd never do it again. And so far I really haven't. Although
was it too much pressure or time pressure, or why was it a bad idea for you?
Well, for me, first of all, I had never written a novel when I signed that deal. And writing a novel is really different from writing other forms.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to do it. And what I learned, I've now written 3 novels, and it just seems that each of them is different. They're like snowflakes, but the process is different. And and so I can't predict when they'll be done, but having that kind of deadline on me, it just made everything feel really cramped and bad. And my new strategy that I'm hoping will work from now on is not to write in order unless it comes right out in order from the beginning to the end. I write things that I think belong in it, but I don't try to put them in order. And in that way, that means I sort of don't do outlines very much either, because I kind of know stuff that I want to be in it because I've written chunks. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So and I go to residencies and try to write intensely and to think in a pure way about what's about the world that the book is in. The world needs to grow, like yeast in your hands. So that you can hardly contain it in the book. I'd like it to feel that way, so that's, and I need privacy and space for that. And then, then I come back to it. But the first novel was horrible. And now my way of dealing with this is to just not put that kind of official pressure on it.
What about you, Jacquelyn? You looked excited to tell us about your first
well, it was
sale.
really easy to sell it, the first one. Really easy to sell it. I mean, it took 3 days.
Wow.
Wow.
That's crazy fast.
Yeah. I mean, to sell it, not to write it.
Yes. But did you have an agent? Like,
Yes, I had.
Was it easy to get? Was it that easy to get the agent too? Like, was it like, I got the agent, I got the book deal, I'm on Oprah, I'm done?
Yeah, because I don't know what was going on there. It was sort of like kismet in some ways, but I mean, I was lucky. I was lucky to get my agent's attention because I had written an entirely forgettable nonfiction book that didn't even sell to people with the same last name as mine. And you will never meet anyone who has the same last name as mine. Okay. So I had an agent and she was diligent and terrific about selling my first novel. And that was sort of the little book that could. I've had more trouble. I've never had trouble, but I've had more sort of snarky remarks about later books than that book, of course. And people, even other writers, even my MFA students, they have the belief that once you write that first novel, and then it's just like you write anything you want, anytime you want, and say, I would like a large amount of money, please. And they'll say, here comes that money, sweetie. And when nothing could be further from the truth. No, I mean, now for my current publisher, who is a psychopath, I have to write down an outline. Well, then what happened after she went back to Boston? I don't know. It's to just make sure that I'm going to stay on the straight and narrow and not go all third rail on them or something. But so it hasn't. I am a very planful writer who does write in order and does. I don't have an outline, but I sort of have a narrative outline for where I'm going to go, because for me, it feels like I would walking into the airport and saying, want to go someplace, don't know where. I have to go in the airport and say, I'm going to Minneapolis and I don't want to stop more than once. And so I am planful in that way, but the demands on me after all these years are not lesser from the publisher. They're just as much, if not more.
Wow. Don't fall asleep, Cleyvis, you're next.
Oh, I mean, let me just say that
80 degrees.
I mean, I feel like I had like a tougher time at it, just generally. Like, I loved my agent, but my agent passed on me the first time he read my book. And I was fortunate because we happened to be meeting that same summer when he passed on my book. I was mortified. I'm like, this is so embarrassing. But we ended up like really having like a wonderful conversation, and he asked that I send him the book when I revised it, because I was intending to revise it. And so, and that took another year, you know, because I had two very young children and I had a full-time corporate job. And so, yeah, so like once he decided that we were going to work together, it was another year before we sold the book, you know, like, you know, the pandemic happened and he and I were working on revisions. So, but, you know, I mean, it wasn't 3 days, but I sold my book at auction within 2 weeks of going into market. So like for me, it also was like slow, and then fast. So, you know, so I think once the book got sold, and I think that was part of what you were asking, is, you know, like once the book got sold, then I started working with my editor. Like I had like a dream editor. Like she really didn't want a lot of edits. And I was the maniac that was like, hold up, like this book is actually going to be published. Like this is going to happen. And then I lost my mind and I like edited the hell out of this book because I was like, the book is going to be out in the world, you know? So, I mean, I definitely felt a lot more of like the internal pressure to make sure that the book was the best that I could make it.
That's very cool. We have two quick questions from the audience. So Claudette wants to know what happens for each of you when your book is already done out in the world and some way takes on a life of its own. What happens in your mind? Are you ready? Are you eager to do the sales? Are you back into writing something new? How do you go?
Hi, Claudette. I'll answer. It's, you know, it's like completely different for me transitioning when the book transitions from being something that's private and something that everyone can see that is now a product. But it's exciting. It's exciting to go out there and talk about it. My big problem is that I can't write and talk at the same time. Like I can't talk about one project and start another project at the same time. So I've been talking about my book for the year of 2022. And I have this like, you know, knowledge that I'll be able to start thinking about a new project in 2023, basically.
Exciting. Very soon. 2 weeks.
Yeah, maybe.
That's great. What about you, Cleyvis? How are you dealing with the fact that your very 12-year-old book is now out in the world running around?
Well, let me tell you one thing. Readers are mean. Can I tell you guys? I'm like, these people on Goodreads are savages. I was not expecting people to be, you know, one thing that I felt like I was really ill prepared for is how much people want a happy ending. And like you know, and like, I'm not spoiling it for those of you who haven't read it, but like I wrote a nuanced book where like the ending, I don't think it's like a bow tie and like people running into a sunset, right? But I felt like I did right by my characters. And so, you know, to me, like I was just really surprised at how hurtful I felt. Like, even though my book did really well critically, my publisher is very happy. They're eager for the next book. And, you know, a good friend of mine once said, before we went into this, she was like, you know what, make sure that you like decide for yourself what does success look like, because it gets crazy. Like the publisher wants you to be a New York Times bestseller. The publisher wants you to like sell 1 trillion books, you know, like Jacquelyn. The rest of us might not get there with our debut, you know? So I just remember being like really basic. Like my goals were like, I want to write another book, you know? And I want to like be in community with other writers. Like if this book can enable me to talk, like this is a dream come true right now, because I'm like such a fan of these two writers and like of Parentis. But it's like, you know, like I felt like my goals were really like, I want my book to enable me to see the world. Like that was a big thing because I love to travel. And like, I'm going to Marrakesh, Morocco next month on my book.
Are
You
you
know,
going to do a signing? Are you going to?
I'm going to go teach. I got invited to teach a writing workshop. And they're like, you know, and so, I mean, but like, that's the thing that I felt like, I was just like, I cried a lot in the last year, you know, like the things that I didn't expect would hurt, like not getting nominated for prizes or like not making end of the, like, by the way, things I didn't even know existed, like are hurting my feelings because I'm not getting. And it's like, so I just keep reminding myself, like, what did you get into this for? Is because I want to write a book that people read. And so, you know, I've just been getting a lot of really beautiful letters from people. So that part has been unexpected. But the parts that hurt a lot. Like, let me just say that. Like, I wasn't expecting to be like crying over like, or readers saying that, you know, like they don't like my book.
Sometimes people don't realize how much goes into a book. Like they think like, oh yeah, you know, we're all hoity-toity. We get up there, we finish our book and it goes out, like no big deal, right? But it's like labor.
But you know what, Christine, I have to say one thing, and I'll just say this, not in favor of the haters, but I also feel like there's something to be said for like the platforms that exist. Like, you know, I keep getting tagged by bookstagrammers, you know, and I feel like they think they're being kind because they're like, oh, the language is beautiful, but like, you know, I didn't like this part of it. And it's just like, there are some things that I feel like are meant to be for readers. Like Goodreads is a reading platform. Like we have no business being there as writers. Like, so now I'm avoiding those.
They're talking about they are kind of talking about the book as a entity separate from like the story as a story, not as a thing that somebody spent a lot of time trying to create and making it like good and real and say the message that we care about, right? What were we going to say?
And that's the nature of when it goes out in the world, and it has to make its own living as a you know, it's like you can't live with your kid after your kid is married, right? You know, unless you're really, really a masochist. But you send your book out, you love that character, and the people who read it are saying, you know, I really found that woman to be a cold-hearted, you know, a complete bitch. And she, you know, and you're thinking, who could ever think that of my wonderful protagonist character? But the book is grown up and it's on its own, and you can't shepherd the way you can your little kindergartner into school and have everyone have the right impression of your characters, because that's over. And by the way, all those books that my first novel sold, I have two words for you: Oprah Winfrey. That's the reason. I mean, my book, it was a bestseller. It was on the bottom of the New York Times bestseller list when Stedman Graham bought a copy of it for his sweetheart. And that was how all that stuff happened. And I remain stunned by that.
That's beautiful.
It's amazing. So we're going to have to go really soon. Let's do a really quick kind of yes or no to this. Is it possible for you to generally rate your books from best to worst, from your favorite to your least favorite, or does that seem like a meaningless thing? Like, do you bother rating your stuff, or do you just write the next one and sort of not think about where it falls on like how much you like it?
Do you do that to your children, Milda?
I do. Yeah.
I don't. I know what my worst book is, and I never refer to it. And it's not on my. It's not on my.
So 23 books is what you're saying.
Yes, and so it's not on my Vita or anything anymore because it was so shitty that I mean I had to disown it. But I know that, and then the slightly, you know, I'm a little more forgiving with some that, but all of them have, you know, they have birth defects. All my books are, I mean, none of them is perfect. I don't know if other people, I think there are probably other people who feel as though each of their books is triumphant. I would call those people men. But I don't know any women who say, listen, you know, this is not the best book I've ever written. It's the best book anyone's ever written.
It does seem a little arrogant to maybe say that. Maybe. Although you never know. You guys wrote pretty good books, so you could say it. Listen, you guys, so it's time for us to start to wind up, which is insane. I want to invite everybody out in viewer land to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/penparentis. And then when all of these salons, we do them once a month on the second Tuesday of the month. And when they are ready, like when we have them edited and sort of like packaged up, they go live on YouTube and you can watch them again and again. Or for the first time, or you can watch the part that you didn't get to see because your kid needed you to go and get the homework from wherever. And yeah, Mom, I need your computer so I can do my whatever. This coming January, we have an annual winter poetry salon in which we always feature fabulous poets, and we have 5 of them, and it's really exciting. It's Nathaniel O'Reilly, Caitlin McDonald, Rio Cortez, Catherine Woodard, and JP Howard. We are very excited to have her back. Well, all of them. But so that is happening. I want to thank the DeGroat Foundation and the New York Council on the Arts. I want to thank Clydette DeGroat and Charles McNair for sitting in the front row. Thank you. Everybody wave at them. Hi, you guys.
Hi.
Thank you for sitting in the front row. We appreciate your support. Thanks to everybody who donated to buy a ticket. And what else? Apply for your Courage to Write grants. Apply for your Orlando grant at degroatfoundation.org and oplm.com. Please visit their website. The Other Parents Like Me is a very cool parent-to-parent support community for parents of teens that are struggling with mental health issues. And that's a very important thing. It's important to find your community. We can be your community if you have kids. We have, kids of any stage or parents of any age, whatever, bring them all. We'll take you all. And we will be very happy to connect you to other writers and give you an accountability group. Jacquelyn, Sam, Cleyvis, thank you so much for your time and your openness. It is so much fun. Sandel, hey, thanks. We'll be reading everybody's comments afterwards. Bye, everybody.
Oh, Lisa's out there. Hi, Lisa.
Yeah.